Welcome to part 2 in this special video series where you get to look over my shoulder and watch me buy and sell this house in Grand Junction, Colorado using creative financing without ever seeing the property in person. In video 1, I showed you step by step how I bought this house subject to. Now if you missed that video, stop right now and go and watch it and then come back to this video. I'll put the link to that video in the description below for you. By the way, if you're new here, I'm Jerry Norton. I make millions of dollars a year wholesaling and flipping houses. And here on my YouTube channel, I show you how to do the same. So if you want to be a flipping genius like me and live your dream life, subscribe to my channel and watch my videos. To quickly recap from video 1, I bought this house subject to the existing loan of $131,000 and my total entry fees were $46,000, making the total investment to get into this deal $177,000. And its current as-is market value is $240,000. Now in this video, I'm gonna show you step by step how I resold this house using a little known creative financing strategy called a wraparound mortgage. Now one of the great things about this deal is I had several options on my exit strategy, which is always fun when doing real estate. So what were my different exit options? Well, exit option number 1 that most people would choose is to hold this property as a long-term rental, earning positive cash flow, which wouldn't be a bad move. The monthly principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, or PITI payment, is $975 on that existing loan, and this house can rent for like $1,400 a month. So it would cash flow about $400 a month. Not a bad exit strategy. Option 2 is I could list it for sale and flip it to a traditional buyer. Remember, I've got equity in the property and I can sell it on the open market for $240,000. If I did that, I'd net almost $50,000 in profit after paying commissions and closing fees. Not a bad flip, but I didn't want to do that either. You see, I didn't want to have a deal with tenants, toilets, and turnover, and I also didn't want to flip it and be subject to short-term capital gains tax. What I really wanted was the best of both worlds, to flip it using seller financing and create ongoing cash flow, which brings us to option 3, and that is to sell it on a wraparound mortgage. Now, this is a more advanced strategy, so I'm going to try my best to explain it so that it makes sense. Like I said, the retail market value for this house is $240,000. What I don't want to do is sell it to a conventional buyer who would cash out my subject to loan. I could do that, but I would lose the benefit of existing financing at 5.25% interest. Instead, I want to leave the existing financing in place, be the bank, use seller financing with a new buyer, which is exactly what I did. I sold it for $240,000 on seller financing with $25,000 down at 7.9% interest on a 50-year amortization. Why 50 years? Because the buyer wanted a cheaper monthly payment, so I agreed to stretch out the length of the loan from 30 years to 50 years, making the monthly payment lower. Now I'll explain later how I found my buyer, so keep watching. But first, think about my structure on this deal. There's an existing loan already in place for $131,000 that I took over, subject to. But then I turned around and I sold the property to a retail buyer for $240,000 on seller financing with $25,000 down, making the new loan balance $215,000, which is a difference of $84,000 from my subject to loan. Now what I could do is create a second position seller finance loan for that $84,000 at 7.9% interest. That's what most people would do. Now if I did it that way, the new buyer would make 2 different payments each month. A payment on the first subject to loan of $131,000 at 5.25% interest, and then a second loan payment to me on the other $84,000 at 7.9% interest. But not only would that be complicated for the buyer, I would also be losing out on a higher interest rate on the subject to loan. Let me show you and you'll see what I mean. Instead of having 2 loans, I'm going to combine those 2 loans into one loan, which is why it's called a wrap, or sometimes a sandwich. I'm wrapping the 2 loans together to make one loan, but at the higher interest rate of 7.9% interest. That way the buyer makes only one loan payment on the combined total of $215,000 at 7.9%. Now, to really understand the magnitude of just how significant this is, think about it this way. Imagine if my buyer stays in the loan for the full 50 years. That means every month I would pay on my 30-year subject to loan of $131,000 at 5.25% interest. But remember, I took over an existing loan and this loan was already 5 years in on the 30 years, which means I only have 25 years left to pay it off. At the same time, I'm collecting on a loan of $215,000 at 7.9% over 50 years. That means if the seller stays in the loan for the full 50 years, I'll end up paying $106,000 in interest on my sub 2 loan for the next 25 years. But at the same time, I'll be collecting $734,000 on my wraparound loan for the next 50 years for a net profit of $628,000 between the two loans. But wait a minute, I'm thinking long term. The positive net cash flow each month between my seller finance loan of $215,000 and my sub 2 loan of $131,000 is approximately $400 a month. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that $400 a month and apply it towards the principal on my sub 2 loan to pay it down faster. Just by paying an additional $400 a month, I would cut the time from 25 years to 15 years to pay off the loan, and I would go from paying a total of $106,000 in interest over the remaining 25 years to only $37,000 in total interest over 15 years. That means my net profit between what I pay and what I collect would be $697,000 over the next 50 years. But that's just on the interest. Don't forget, I paid $177,000 total to get into the deal, and then I sold it for $240,000. After paying commissions and closing fees, I made a $48,000 profit on the difference. Also, don't forget the buyer put $25,000 down, which I used most of that to pay the commissions and closing fees, but I still walked away with about $11,000 at closing, which offset my entry fee when I bought the property of $46,000. That makes my total cash investment to do this deal only $35,000. So to recap, I invested $35,000 to do this deal that, if carried out over the next 50 years, would give me a net profit of $745,000 and a cash-on-cash return of 2,129%. Man, I love real estate. If you think that's brilliant, leave a comment and say, "Nice deal, Jerry. You are a flipping genius." Now finally, how did I find my buyer? Simple. I found a top-notch real estate agent in the area, Julie Jacobson. Now, Julie is part of my same brokerage, Real Brokerage, and Julie specializes in the Grand Junction, Colorado market, and she came highly recommended. She agreed to list my property for sale with creative financing, and she was amazing during the entire process. Truly one of the best agents I've ever worked with. The listing write-up said, "Tired of paying rent, yet credit not quite up to snuff? This seller is offering an owner carry opportunity for this cute 2-bedroom, 1-bath home." We listed this home for sale on January 27th, and after about 30 days on the market, we accepted an offer and went under contract, and we're set to close any day. And because it's a wraparound loan, I wanted to make sure it was done correctly according to Colorado law. So my agent, Julie, recommended we use a lawyer that she knew, and the buyer agreed to split the fee. So we each paid like $300 to put the loan together. And that's a wrap. Literally a wrap. Now, I hope you enjoyed this special video series. If you have any questions at all about any part of this deal, please leave a comment. I read all of them and I answer like half of them. Now, also, if you'd like to see more videos like this where I break down real live deals, leave a comment and let me know that too. Finally, watch this next video where you can watch me live with a seller as I buy a property subject to. And if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you on the next video.